of the week. So today I will be doing the October 2024 law school question paper. I'll just be going through the paper as a whole and explaining how a complete L&D should look, with also the divestments and the important bits and pieces that we did not focus on because we were prioritizing just understanding the L&D first before anything. So question 1 of this paper was the liquidation and distribution account, and the facts read as follows. A and B were married to each other out of community of property without accrual. A died on 17 January 2024. He was survived by B, his major son C, minor daughter D, and E, an adopted son who is mentally ill. You are appointed to administer A's estate, and you find the following. So we know that number one, your L&D account will always have a heading. And as per our notes, we know that our heading has to highlight certain things. So we are going to start with the first and final liquidation and distribution account of the late A, let's give him a surname Zungu with ID number. Then you're just going to put an ID number there. 9 with ID number who was married to B Zungu out of community of property without the accrual, who died on 17 January 2024. Okay, that's about it. And then the master's reference. Master's reference number, we can never forget it. 23/20, let's say, died 2024. So that would be it. So you're going to say the first and final liquidation and distribution account of the late A Zungu with an ID number. You can also just put this before the son actually, but they're not strict in the format. It's just the things that you need to highlight. So it's going to be the first and final liquidation and distribution account of the late A Zungu with ID number, who died on 17 January, who was married to B Zungu out of community of property and without the accrual system, and then the master's reference. So that's about it. You always have a heading before you proceed, and your heading will come from your facts. Your facts will always tell you what goes in your heading. Sometimes always make sure you scroll down to check if the deceased do not have a will. So now we scroll down and we see it says in his will, A leaves his furniture and household effects to his daughter D and his shares in MTN to his son C. The residue of his estate is bequeathed to his surviving spouse B. So now we've got a new fact that will add on to our heading, which means that A died testate. So now that A died testate, it means that we also ought to mention it in our heading. So the first and final liquidation and distribution account of the late A Zungu, who died on, was married to, so we can say the liquidation and distribution account of the late A Zungu's testate estate. Also, there is no hard rule on where you should put on these words, but you should have it in a sense of like your heading. They mark you according to what you've got in your heading instead of how you present them. So do not worry about you maybe having started with the date of death or instead of the marital regime and things like that. Does not really matter as long as it just reads well. Just like you see here, the first and final liquidation and distribution account of the late A. Zungu's estate, testate estate, and then ID number. Let me just move that ID number. I did not see. A. Zungu's, yeah. And then ID shouldn't be in brackets. So that would be basically it. A Zungu testate estate who died on, who was married to be out of community of property without the accrual, and then you give your master's reference. So that's how you start your liquidation account. This heading is about 4 to 5 marks. So please remember to always make sure you've got your heading and the facts of your heading, as you see and as I taught in the previous video, will always come from your facts, the brief facts they give you. To to cut mommies and babies and grannies. I don't know, my love. So your facts will always, your heading will always come to your facts. Just always make sure that you scroll down to make sure that there is or there isn't a will. And then now we go to the work. So I'm sure you have seen in previous papers that there's like an extensive description of the liquidation, like of the interest in the liquidation account. So you would see a house and then it has a full address and all that. So what we call that is DVD, right? So we've got distribution, valuation, and divestment. Is it divestment or divestment? Okay. So please, this is just for lesson's sake, and also you remembering how you should write it. So in your distribution, you are basically highlighting how is this property going to be distributed or that specific asset. And then in valuation, you basically discuss by whom was it valued or was it sold. And then divestment then now highlights no. This is description, man. It's description. Where is my mind? Sorry about that, guys. So this is description. You would be describing your property, right, on description. And then valuation, you state how was it valued. Basically you stating that, okay, let's say they give you a price, was it valued? Municipal valuation, you say municipal valuation. If it was sold, you'd say sold for. And then divestment is now you stating that the specific property is going to this person, either by interstate, either by a will. So that would be now your options. So now the best way to remember what you need to write in order to get the full marks in terms of those small notes you find in your L&D, you would always have your description of the property, the evaluation of the property, as well as the divestment. Description, you're describing the property. Valuation, how was it valued, was it sold, and divestment as to whom the property is going. So now we know we've covered that. We've got our first account, which is the liquidation account, right? Our liquidation account. Our liquidation account at this stage, we know that it's made up of assets, which firstly the movable, immovable assets. Then we've got movable assets. and then claims in favor of the estate. So now under your liquidation account, you would have your, let me just do this. Okay, match sell. Yeah, so under your liquidation account, you've got your assets. And the first asset that we've got is immovable assets. Right. So remember what we said when we were doing our principles. Immovable assets as anything stationary, whether on land, whether it's a sectional title, whether it's a flat. But at this stage, you know that immovable property does not move. It's more like your house, your property, your land, and things like that. So now here we are starting with our immovables. We go to our question one. So by question one, we see it says a house at 1211 Hill Street, Lady Smith, valued at 3.5 million. So automatically we know that A had a house to the value of 3.5 million. It was valued, it was not sold. All right, so now we see this house. Now we have to start with our description. But for a house, the examiner expects you to use the title deed um, description. So you will make up something like Erf 143, Lady Smith, Lady Smith, with a registration division you I'm not sure of the registration division for Lady Smith. I'm not sure if they mark you strictly in terms of the you specifying the most correct registration division, but even if they expect you to do so, I mean, I don't think it's something that can really impact your your marks. You should be able to get your 1 mark. So they're like specific letters, yeah, descriptions that they use for divisions, like there's a JR, there's a there's just quite a few. I only know JR at this point actually. But yeah, so we're just gonna say this one is XR for sake of the exam. We're just gonna say XR. And then you're gonna say you're now gonna follow with the province that the property is situated in. So we know Lady Smith is in KwaZulu Natal. Then you're gonna say province of KwaZulu Natal. KwaZulu, KwaZulu Natal. And then you now, once you've given your ERF number, your registration division, your province, you must follow with the size of the property. So you make up a number of, like, let's say 100 or 1,000 square meters or hectares, whatever it is. Then you would say in KwaZulu-Natal, measuring in the extent of 580 square meters. You just make it up, like any number that you can think of that sounds like the size of a property, you just put that in there. So there you've got your description according to your DVD. Then you've got your description, and then you go now, you've got your valuation. So at valuation, you just oh, I forgot the title deed number. Sorry about that. Then you're gonna say held under title deed number, let's say 123 T TY, yeah, whatever it is. So yeah, let's say the house was bought in 1995. So that would just be your title deed number. And then now you've got your title deed number. The title deed number also forms part of your description. Now we go to valuation. Valuation, it says that valued at. So we know that 3.5 million was at valuation. And as easy as that, you just say at valuation. That's your valuation. And then now we have to do the divestment, right? So before you can divest, you have to go back to your facts and understand, right? So we've got our facts. We know he died with the will. In his will, he said furniture and household effects will go to daughter A, shares to son C, and then the residue of the estate to the surviving spouse. So after giving the daughter the furniture and household effects and giving the son shares. Wait. So we know that after we have given the children these two, everything that is left behind is now going to B. And by virtue of that, it means that the house falls part of the residue of the estate, what is left behind in the estate. And so now we have established that B, as the surviving spouse, we will be the one in terms of the will. Okay, let's say in terms of clause 1.1 of the will. So that is how you apply your description, valuation, and divestment. Description, you describe your property. At valuation, you just basically state at valuation or sold for if it was sold, or if they said municipal valuation, you'd say at municipal valuation. And then the house then will go to, let's rather say the immovable property. Immovable asset will be awarded to. So sorry about that. I lost my connection. So it's just you just also make up a clause number to say that according to this clause, the wife is supposed to get this. So what I will do is, for the sake of clarity and also just making sure that I do not um share a lot, I will break down this video into 4 parts so that you can at least, as starters, focus on completing the liquidation account. And then once you're done with that, we can move on to other accounts just like we did previously. So at valuation would be your 3.5 million. It's really, really that easy. They're not strict with the description. Anyone can come up with their description. It's not like the examiner knows, or is basically telling you guys how to describe your property. No, as long as you do it correct, that's all that matters. And then now we see, according to our facts, we do not have any other immovable property, so we can move on. Now we move on to our movable assets. We move on to our movable assets. We know from our previous classes, we said that movable assets are basically anything that is movable and not sold, and it's tangible, right? So now this also does include your shares, because shares are we consider them as movable assets. So at movable assets, you're looking at things like your furniture, your car, jewelry, things like that. Those are your movables. So now we've got movable assets, and the first one we see, it's furniture and household effects valued at 700,000. So at this stage, we know it is a movable. So it's furniture and household effects. And household effects. And let me just move this because this is actually just our item column. So we've got furniture and household effects. We've described it, right? And then to whom will it be going to? We remember that somewhere down the line, Mr. A said his furniture and household effects will go to his daughter D. So we know that, okay, the divestment is that daughter D gets the household and furniture. So now we see from here, there is no valuation or whatever. Oh, there is valuation actually. So we're going to say valued add valuation, which is our valuation part. This is our description. This is our valuation and our divestment. So that divestment says the asset will be awarded to daughter D in terms of clause 1 of the will. That's about it. You make up a clause number because it is not given to us. Unless it's given, you're going to use that clause number. But if it's not, you make it up. So we know that, okay, the furniture and household content is 700,000 and it's going to daughter D. So there we are done with that. We've got our description, we've got our valuation, and we've got our divestment, the person to whom the asset is going to. And then we move on. 11,417 owing to Ladysmith Municipality for rates. So item number 3, we know that it is a debt, which means that deceased owed Ladysmith Municipality. We highlight it because we are going to come back to it when we deal with our liabilities. And then item 4, a car valued at 260, which the executor sold for 300,000. So we've got a car, it was valued at 260, but the executor managed to sell it for a profit. So what's going to happen here? Remember we said we give preference to the sold for price. Valuation price is only if something is not sold. Then you can use the valuation. But if it was sold, we use the sold for price. So now we are going to have our car. But for your car, you also have to describe it. So you have to come up with a description of the car. Okay, I'm coming, my love. Just a second. So now we're going to say a Toyota Corolla. Toyota Corolla. Oh, oh yeah. Toyota Corolla. I don't know, bro. Okay, I don't know. Toyota Corolla Quest. And then with registration number. With registration number JBR 145 Free State Province. Okay, let me rather use KZN since the property is also situated at KZN. That's just for clarity, not confuse you guys. So then that would be your description of your vehicle. And then at valuation, it was sold. So we're going to say sold for. You get what I'm saying? And then you put your price. It was sold for, it was sold for 300,000. There you go. And then divestment, to whom is it going? So remember, we know the shares as well as the household contents are going to the children. And then the will says the residue of the estate can go to the surviving spouse. So we know that, okay, the wife will get the car. So then you're going to say the asset will be awarded to the surviving spouse B in terms of, excuse me, clause 1.1 of the will. Was it 1.1? Okay. Yes, 1.1 of the will. So, because we know the residue of the estate basically meaning anything that is left after giving the daughters and the son must go to the wife. So we are done with 4. And then now number 5 says an insurance policy with Sanlam on A's life. The surrender value was 60,000 or 66,680 and the maturity value was 1 million. B was the beneficiary. So we have identified our red flag. And what is our red flag? The fact that there is a beneficiary. We know at this stage that any policy that has a beneficiary will not form part of our liquidation account. So we move on. And then we go on to number 5. It says an insurance policy on B's life. The surrender value was 400,000. The maturity value was 950. A paid premiums to the value of 186,000 on this policy. So what happened with number 5, it means that A took a life insurance policy on B's life, hoping that B would die first, but unfortunately it did not happen like that. So we know when the deceased took out a life insurance policy on the life of someone else, that policy, because he is obviously late, he won't be paying the premiums anymore. The policy must be surrendered back to the estate. So what we're going to take is the surrender value. Remember, this policy basically now also does not have a beneficiary because the person who was hoping to benefit from it actually died first. So you're gonna have your, what policy is it? Okay, policy. Let me just say insurance policy. Insurance policy. Then number, let's give it a policy number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. So your policies will always have a policy number. Your accounts will always have an account number. You're not gonna now follow the same strategy with the with your valuation and all that, but you're gonna have a insurance policy number. So your insurance policy number, you make it up as well. Then what are we taking from this amount? We're taking 400,000. There you go. Taking 400,000 because it's a surrendered policy. Okay, sorry, I forgot to just divide the two. It's not really a must that you divide your movables claims in favor and your claims in favor, but I prefer it that way because then chances of me making mistakes and mixing things up when I go to my later accounts are less. Hence, I prefer having all headings, but I've seen in past papers they don't seem very strict with you having to have the heading for your claims in favor. So there you've got your insurance policy. So with these ones, because the amount it's you collecting money, you can list everything and then have one divestment note for all, or you can choose to write, okay, the asset will awarded to the surviving spouse in terms of clause because now everything is basically going to the spouse except for the empty end sheets. But it's entirely up to you. And then we go to the next one. It says cash in the sum of 350 in a savings account at African Bank in B's name. So we know B and A and B are married out of community of property without accrual. And this account is in B's name, so it will not form part of the liquidation account of A. We leave it out. And then the bond in favor of ABSA over the house, the balance as at 17 January was. Okay, so we see this is a debt in the estate. We'll come back to it. SARS final assessment, we know it is a debt. We'll come back to it. And then we've got attorney's fees and bond cancellation costs. It's also a debt, so we just highlight it. We're going to come back later to it. Funeral expenses in the amount of 36,000 which a family member paid. Remember what I told you previously. If someone pays for funeral expenses out of the goodness of their heart, we will not claim it or record it in our liquidation account under liabilities. Just take it as someone did that out of the goodness of their heart. Unless it says which a family member paid and would like to be reimbursed or something along those lines, then you know that, okay, we need to pay the uncle for the expense that he incurred. But for instance, let's say it says funeral expenses in the amount of 36,000 and then it's full stop. If it's like that, you know that this is an expense that the estate incurred, we are going to include it. But if it says a family member, an uncle, or whatever, we take it as a donation unless it expressly states that that person wants to claim back their money that they spent. So please bear in mind these two differences. And then it says administration costs excluding masters and executives fee in the amount of. So we know also this is a liability. We'll come back later to it. And then 100 shares in XYZ Pty Limited valued at 80 and sold by the executor for 90,000. So, okay, we've got shares at XYZ. It's actually 100 shares at XYZ Pty Limited. Pty Limited. This is now our description for that DVD. And then it was sold. So we're gonna sold. And then at our sold, we are gonna have 90,000. We're gonna have our 90,000. And we also know that these shares are going to the wife, right? Because it's part of the residue estate of the estate. So now I think we are ready to write our divestment note in terms of our of these two properties. So we're gonna say the assets will be awarded to the surviving spouse, like that. And then now we've got the 150 shares in MTN. Okay, it was valued by auditors. Okay, let me actually just put these at movables rather. Let me just add a column. Is it a column or a row? Whatever, guys. So yeah, we're gonna have shares in MTN limited. And then this is we know that 150 shares MTN limited, it's our description. And then the next one is our valuation. We're gonna say valued by auditor, valued. How do you guys spell valued? Valued by auditor, and then the divestment is it is going to Sun C because we see that from here. He said his shares in MTN to his son C. So the asset will be awarded to son C in terms of clause 1.3 of the will. So now we're gonna take our amount, our valued for amount, which is the 10,000. 10,000, and that's it. So that would be it for your, oh, no man. So that would be basically it for your, for how you describe calculate our total S. Okay, sorry about that. I lost my connection for a second. So now we are basically done, and we would need to calculate our total assets. So now our total asset, I don't have a calculator, but I will try. But remember again, we always have item numbers for our assets. So you're going to have 1, 2. Always number them once you are done. Because if you number them early and you make a mistake, it just creates a mess. But it is expected that all your entries are numbered. And then this one is 4. This is 5. This is 6. Yes. So now you have to add all your amounts and get your total assets. I am going to stop here, and this is going to be part 1. Then part 2 will be liabilities and recap account. Part 3 will be distributional account and our estate duty addendum according to this paper. Yeah, this paper, because they did not have income and expenditure, neither did they have a fiduciary asset account. But this is a law school one. Usually with your board exam, they always have almost all accounts. Even with your fiduciary asset account, if there's nothing, you just write fiduciary asset account nil, as I had taught you in your previous video. So now let's calculate our total assets. Let's see, 3.5 million plus 700,000 plus 300 plus 10,000 plus 400 plus 90,000. It gives me 5 million. So I hope you guys got the same. And that's really about it for your liquidation account. The purpose of this video was to show you how you fill in the extra information that they want you to put in. So remember, we were doing clause and we did not have the heading. We just mainly focused on applying the principles. Now that we've got the hang of our principles, we now have we have to go back to the drawing board and remember that our liquidation account will always have a heading, and then the body of our liquidation account will have what we call the DVD, which is the description, valuation, and divestment. In your description, you're describing your property, and remember your unique assets like your house, you're gonna have an address, ERF number with a title deed number, registration division, as well as how it's measuring the province it's situated, as well as your movable, which is a car. You're always going to have a registration number, like a number plate that you have to make up. So these two are the ones that you are okay. The car basically you don't need to, because once you know that, you can't just say a car, you have to be specific, like a Mercedes Benz or whatever. Just give your car a brand name as well as a number plate. But for your house or your farm, you have to be specific using a title deed kind of description. So these are the only two, actually not two. This is the only one that I would say learn it. You know, there's an F number, the place, the registration division, the province, as well as the measurement of the property and the title deed number that you have to highlight. But other than that, then it's your valuation. It would always be at valuation or sold for. There's really not much that you would write. If it is a loan, so suppose it says Christy owed Sheila, right? And I'm the deceased. And now the executor had to collect the money from Christy, bringing it into my estate. For the evaluation part, it usually says collected. If it says collected, you're gonna say collected. Because the money was collected to come back into the estate or collection. So really your valuation is basically a description of how the amount was, that specific amount um was determined. So if it is like a valuation amount, we say it valued. If it was sold for, we know that, okay, we got 300,000 instead of 260 because this is what we sold the property for. If we collected a loan from someone that owed the deceased estate, we collected. That's how much we collected. That's why we've got that amount. And then your divestment will always be guided by what the facts say. Some of the question will basically say the entire estate will go to my wife. So you would list all your assets. You don't have to go after after every asset. You can just list all the asset and then have a line at the bottom once you're done and say, um, like here, this would be now here. You would then put here that all the above asset will be awarded to the wife, basically by the in terms of clause one of the will, which states that the wife inherits everything. But yeah, that's it for now, guys. I am busy on another video of how you now make your complete L&D account. Thank you, and I hope you are preparing for your exams. All the best. Bye.